Hey Monarchs, Mr. Bryant, I'm really excited to be teaching you guys again. I'm going to be going through this presentation on the Great Depression, which is the time period right before World War II, leads to all of these fascist totalitarian dictators to be able to take control. And remember, totalitarian means total control, so they have complete control over society. We're going to talk about the conditions that led to allow those dictators to take power. And then on Thursday, we're going to be talking about World War II itself, and you guys are going to be doing a little bit of research. Okay, so I'm just going to go through this lecture. All right, the key terms you need to know to understand the Great Depression is one, inflation, and two, depression. Inflation is when a time period when money starts to lose its value, and businesses, because the money is getting lower in value, start to raise their prices. So, say for example, you have go to a vending machine, and imagine you used to spend like, I don't know, like $3 to $4 on like a drink and a bag of chips or something like that when you go to the vending machine, depending on how pricey you feel, how bougie you feel that day. Now imagine the next day you go back and you want to get the exact same thing, so like a Gatorade and a bag of chips, and you go there and lo and behold, now it costs $10 for the exact same thing, which you would be saying like $10, Mr. Bryant, that's how much I would spend when I was buying for all my buddies too, and they were giving me money before I went to go to the bathroom to go get my snack. That's an example of inflation. If you're buying the same thing but it costs way more, and inflation can oftentimes lead to what's called a depression. Now, this isn't the same thing as like a mental health depression where you're feeling down. This is an economic or money related thing. Basically, like, people aren't buying and selling things as well as they used to be. People are not buying and selling the products that they would at the levels they would want to be. And so people start losing their jobs because the businesses can't keep that many workers. They can't pay for them. And because people lose their jobs, they can't pay for those things anymore. And that leads to the economy that might have been going up, just all of a sudden tanking and doing terrible. And that's a depression. All right, we're going to talk about a worldwide depression. The Allied powers after World War One, which were France, Great Britain, owed a lot of money to the United States because they had taken out a lot of loans from the World War One, so they had a lot of debt. Great Britain, they had high interest rates, which led to lower spending, which led to unemployment. And you can see right here on this chart, if there's less spending, that means that there's less need for workers, which leads to workers losing their jobs, which means there's going to be even less spending. And you can see how this is a vicious cycle. If workers don't have their jobs, they can't buy things. And then that means that companies, because they're not getting paid, can't pay their workers, and more people lose their jobs. And this is actually something that's literally happening right now because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Lots of unemployment is rising in the United States and over across the world. And there's a lot of people that are actually concerned that we might be entering another Great Depression type time period, which is totally possible. So hopefully this lesson has some sort of real world connections that you can make, even if they are kind of a bummer. All right, so Germany had the worst of the Great Depression because if you remember after World War One, they were blamed for the war. So they have a lot of inflation of goods and money. Banks had run out of gold. They were depleted. Germany just kept printing paper money. They're like, all right, well, we don't have any gold to back up this money, but let's keep printing more and more money. And what that leads to is a domino effect all around the world. So you have right here, this is an image showing a billion mark dollar bill. Imagine if you pull out $1 bill from your wallet and it says $1 billion on it. And that reason being, like, you'd be still spending the same amount, or you'd be able to buy the same thing that you would with $1, but it would cost $1 billion. So imagine you go to that vending machine, you want to get a bag of chips. Sorry, it costs $1 billion. That's how bad the money got there. And this causes a domino effect where things start to fall over one by one. Each country across the world starts dealing with this. The U.S. tries to handle this by signing something called the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act or Tax Act into policy, which encourages Americans to buy only American goods and places high taxes on imports. So anything coming into the country, they're charging more money for that, which kind of makes a lot of the other countries angry. So they start putting high taxes on American goods, which means that nobody's buying American goods in other countries. So that means that everyone across the world stops trading with each other because all the money just costs all the products start costing way too much money, and so no countries are interacting with each other for trade. which basically, again, leads to jobs lost. Lots of people start looking for new governments and new solutions with new leadership to try to solve these problems, which we'll get to in the future. You can see right here, this is an image showing 2 children in Berlin, or actually 3 children, there's a little one hiding there, in Berlin in Germany, and they are taking stacks of money and they're demonstrating how much $1 US was worth in Deutschmarks, which was the German currency at the time. So this is stacks on stacks on stacks, 100,000 Deutschmarks for just $1 US. Remember that Germany, again, had to pay the cost of World War I, so which leads to a huge and great inflation during the 1920s. In 1914, at the beginning of World War I, $1 US would equal 4 Deutschmarks. So it was not that bad in terms of like price variance. That's pretty typical for some places you go. In 1921, there were 65 marks for $1 US. By September of 23, 9 million marks for just $1 US. And just 2 months later, in November, 4 trillion marks for $1 US. Basically, it cost a whole bunch of money in Germany for any little thing. And you can imagine how people would start losing their jobs. People would really need a lot of help from the government, and we'd be looking for change, which leads to Adolf Hitler. Okay? There's a Great Depression in Germany, and Hitler starts rising to power, who we talked about a little bit before break. German people are feeling humiliated. They have to pay for the war. They have all this debt. There's a lot of starvation, economic depression. And it's really easy, in my opinion, to see why Germany would be willing to kind of like look to this leader who is advocating for some really terrible things, and will put their faith in him because they think that he'll bring them back to being like a prosperous and good nation. Okay? Hopefully that helps explain it. If you are a visual learner and need audio narration, I will always be there in the Google Chats. I'm going to be in the Google Meet, not chat, excuse me, for the first 45 minutes for you guys. So from 1:30 to 2:15. At 2:15, I'm then going to move over to my AP class and going to be in there for 45 minutes. But I will be in here for office hours from 3 to 3:30, and I'll have kind of both chat windows for World and AP World open so I can talk to either of you. Okay? Have a great day, guys. I'm really excited to get back to learning.